My name is Denise Fortenberry, and I'm here today to talk about the quality program and quality philosophy at Cypress Point Surgical Hospital. What does quality mean to you? Quality means different things to different employees based on experiences in previous workplaces. The achievement of quality today is much more than the right care for the right patient at the right time. Although these are the tenets of quality, it also takes into much more of the patient's experience, expectations, and perceptions. At Cypress Point, our focus is on the patient and family members, and it begins with each of you. Each employee on our staff impacts our quality program. The government measures quality by the achievement of certain standards called conditions of participation. These are the standards the facility has to meet in order to participate in the Medicare program. The accrediting body which measures or surveys Cypress Point against these conditions of participation is DNV, which stands for Det Norske Veritas, and this translates into the Norwegian truth. DNV surveys our hospital against two sets of standards: NIO standards and ISO standards. NIO standards, which means the National Integrated Accreditation for Healthcare Organizations. This includes CMS conditions of participation as well as additional standards that are part of the NIO process. ISO standards, the International Standards Organization, is a quality management system. ISO standards are focused solely on our quality program. The goals of the ISO standards are to decrease the variation in processes, which in turn should increase the expected outcomes. The ISO standards are worldwide standards. ISO standards began in the maritime industry, but now crosses over many industries. The NIO standards, in addition to the CMS conditions of participation, NIO standards have 25 additional requirements that must be met by the institutions they survey for accreditation. DNV performs an annual survey. If the standards are met, the facility is granted a 3-year accreditation on its initial survey, the same as Joint Commission. The major difference between the two accrediting bodies is that DNV comes on an annual basis, and in addition to the NIO standards, which for anyone that has gone through a Joint Commission survey is very similar to their requirements, although less prescriptive. In other words, they let the facility determine how the standard is met through its policies, procedures, protocols, workflows, and processes. The second difference is the ISO survey, which is done every 3 years as well. Hospitals must meet and maintain ISO 9001-2008 registration. We have 3 years to achieve. The ISO 9001-2008 means the standards are the 9001 ISO standards, and the last time they were revised was in 2008. The ISO 9001-2008 standards specify requirements for a quality management system where an organization, 1, needs to demonstrate its ability to consistently provide product. For us, that would be admit, treat, and discharge patients. That meets the customer, which would be patients, family, physicians, and vendors, and applicable statutory and regulatory requirements. And second, aims to enhance customer satisfaction through the effective application of the system, including processes for continual improvement of the system and the assurance of conformity to customer and applicable statutory and regulatory requirements. The ISO 9001-2008 standards have 7 clauses that are used in measuring the quality management system. A management representative is appointed by the board of directors and interfaces between Cypress Point and DNV. The management representative has the responsibility for the management of the NIO and ISO standards, as well as providing documentation and management reviews, communicating the system requirements and our standards, and measuring, monitoring, and analysis of the facility toward meeting the requirements with the overarching goal of providing a good patient safety system. The quality management model that is used at Cypress Point is that of Plan, Do, Check, Act. This is widely used in the healthcare arena. It encompasses inputs or requirements that the patient processes and outputs. Plan, which means in our world, define, prepare, document. Do would be execute or record. Check, measure, compare, and act, evaluate, and correct. What is the plan for the patient? How was the plan implemented? And what was the outcome? Did we meet the patient's expectations? The 6 key areas that ISO 9001-2008 standards focus on to achieve the identified processes and outcomes include control of documents, control of records, internal audit procedure, control of non-conforming work, corrective action procedure, preventive action procedures. We have a policy and procedure for each of these key areas on SharePoint in the quality section. Control of documents. The main focus with control of documents is to establish administrative level control to ensure that relevant policies, procedures, and protocols are approved prior to use and that the revision levels are controlled. Documents are periodically reviewed, documents are available at all points of use, and the documents of an external origin are controlled. SharePoint is the platform for controlling documents and can be accessed by any employee from any facility computer with your user Windows login and password. Your login and password is recorded in the system and should never be shared with anyone. Control of records. This policy describes the administrative level control mechanism to ensure records that attest to the fulfillment of requirements such as policies and procedures, minutes, financial reports, and quality controls are stored, retained, protected, and destroyed when necessary. The companion document, the Document Retention Guidelines, is available in SharePoint in the Forms and Protocols section under the Quality Department. Internal audit. Internal audit and reporting of opportunities for improvement is the cornerstone for continual improvement. This is one of the most essential aspects of the 9001-2008 standards. The audit is a self-assessment on the organization's activities, processes, and practices on a regular basis. The standards require that the internal audit of the quality management system processes be carried out at defined intervals. The internal process system audits cover evaluation of current practice to ensure that the requirements continue to be met. This process monitors the individual department's performance against established performance measures. The audit could be a process audit, looking at compliance with a particular policy or procedure, a tracer audit focusing on the different decision points in the patient's experience through a department, or a general departmental audit with an overview of the facility requirements and the degree to which the department is meeting those standards. The internal audit schedule is established on an annual basis. We have audits on a monthly schedule. Our goal is to monitor each department at least once on an annual basis. We would like to monitor the clinical departments twice a year, doing a process audit and a tracer audit annually. The audits are completed by staff not involved in the audited department. Currently, it is members of the quality department conducting the audits. Our goal for the future is to involve interested staff from other departments and provide them with the education and training to assist in the internal audit process. The audit looks at specific questions with a yes or no answer. This is a very objective process to provide valuable feedback to the departments on areas of nonconformities. The ISO philosophy embraces the concept that the less variation in a process, the better the outcome. This encourages the development of flowcharts, protocols, and work instructions. We are continually working to improve our processes. Once the internal audit is complete, the report is sent to the department manager along with a corrective action plan form. The department manager returns the corrective action plan to the quality department. The quality department will follow up with the department on its efforts to meet its corrective action plan. If you have an interest in participating as an internal auditor, please follow up with a member of our quality staff. This is an example. This is our 2013 internal audit schedule, and you can see we have all of the departments within the hospital mapped out with when their audit will occur. Non-conforming product. In healthcare organizations, a non-conforming product is often known as a variance, occurrence, or incident and is reported as such. This is any product or service that does not meet the original requirements. Examples of non-conforming product could be any of the following: incomplete forms in our documentation, incorrect medication administration records, history and physical not within 24 hours, out-of-date supplies or medications, unsterile products on sterile field, out-of-date equipment calibration, equipment not functioning as desired or designed, wrong site surgery, out-of-date manuals, policies and procedures, recalls by a manufacturer, out-of-date food, failure to follow procedure standards or organizational guidelines, and even patient falls. This encompasses all the departments and all the processes that we perform at our facility. Example of when a nonconformity becomes reportable. An OR staff member during preparing for a procedure pulls a pill-packed instrument with the seal not intact. The staff, in reviewing the set, discovers that the seal is not intact and returns to SPD for processing or reprocessing. This would not need to be reported. However, if the staff member pulled the instrument and had not checked the package for integrity, and during the opening of the supplies for the procedure it was later discovered, this is considered a nonconformance that must be reported and corrective action taken to determine whether the case preparation processes are effective or in need of improvement to prevent another occurrence. The quality department, through its risk management activities, reviews the incident reports to look for patterns or trends. The incident reports are not used in a punitive measure, but rather to look for opportunities for improvement in the processes and outcomes. Both corrective actions and preventive actions are activities and steps in the quality and facility-wide improvement process or cycle. Corrective action is initiated by the occurrence of a nonconformity, a patient-customer complaint, or a similar type event. This is a systematic process to determine the root cause and to implement actions sufficient to ensure that the problem does not recur. You may be familiar with the term sentinel event, which would precipitate a RCA or root cause analysis. We use this process for more than just sentinel events. Examples of occurrences that could precipitate a root cause are adverse events and outcomes related to patient care, wrong site surgery, medication error, nonconformities, variance, occurrences, or incidents. If determined to be a pattern, a root cause would be done to determine what is causing, and this could involve one department or cross multiple departments. Others are complaints from patients or visitors, internal reports from committee meetings. The RCA is done involving the quality department. We have a specific format that we follow to determine the root cause. The first step in the process is to identify the problem. Once the problem has been identified, we want to gather as much data or information about the problem from all departments and our staff involved. The next step is to analyze the data and group it into categories. From this, the concept is to identify the root. What is the real cause of the problem? Is this a process issue, a staffing issue, or a procedure issue? Once we have determined the real or root cause of the problem, a corrective action plan can be developed. Following that, the plan is implemented and monitored for effectiveness. As a facility, we would also want to look at similar processes that may have the same problem and take corrective action before an incident could occur. Preventive action process. Preventive action is concerned with analyzing the system using available data and information to identify potential problems before they occur, thus preventing a nonconformity. I think of corrective action as a reactive approach to a problem and preventive action as a proactive approach. It identifies a possible issue and fixes it before it becomes a problem. The proactive approach is an opportunity to base your response on specific decision points in the process. This process is called FMEA, Failure Mode Effect and Analysis. It involves reviewing as many systems and subsystems as possible to identify failure modes and their causes and effects. For each component, the failure modes and their resulting effects on the rest of the system are recorded in a specific FMEA worksheet. The FMEA is mainly a qualitative analysis. This could relate to a process, a new piece of equipment, or possibly a new procedure. You would flowchart the process, determine at what points in the process a failure could occur. Next, you would determine the impact if a failure did occur, then what actions are necessary to prevent the failure from occurring, and lastly, monitor the processes for the effectiveness of the preventive action. Once a determination is made and the actions are implemented to prevent the failure from occurring is much like the corrective action plan. You can see how this can be a more effective approach as new equipment and procedures are introduced. Putting all of these components together comprise the total quality management system that is described in the quality manual. The quality manual is available on SharePoint under Policies and Procedures, the Quality section. The key processes of the quality activities include ongoing review of the management activities of the hospital, the budget, both operating and capital review with department managers, patient care issues, staffing resources, patient safety system, measuring, monitoring, and analyzing the processes, implementing actions to achieve planned results, and continual improvement activities. The quality management review is a cross-functional process to review the performance of the organization as a whole against our key indicators or measures. Inputs into the management review include 1. Patient satisfaction. We have both internal and external patient satisfaction processes. Our external vendor is Press Ganey, and they provide monthly reports on both our inpatient and outpatient experiences. We have internal surveys. This is departmental questionnaires on the nursing units for the patients to complete. These are reviewed and discussed by the CEO. Readmission rates. Are we doing everything we can for a patient before discharge to prevent their readmission? Surgical site infection surveillance. What are our clinical processes from an infection controls perspective to prevent a surgical site infection? We are performing MRSA testing prior to some surgical procedures, so this can be addressed in advance of the procedure and an appropriate antibiotic can be ordered. Internal audit results. An overview of the internal audits that have been conducted, areas of nonconformance, and progress toward a corrective action plan. External audit results. Any visits from state and or federal agencies or our accrediting body. Examples of this would be a public health survey of the cafeteria, the fire marshal survey, DNV, CMS, or our state licensing programs. Product outcome measures. Are the departmental objectives being achieved? This would include a review of budget, medication variances, and finally the status of any corrective or preventive actions are discussed. As you can see, this is a very extensive list of items discussed at the management level. The Board of Directors receives a management report on a quarterly basis. Resource management. Top management or administration must ensure that adequate resources are available for the planned services. This is typically achieved through the budgeting and review process. The information that impacts the resource management comes from many different aspects of the facility's functions. Human resource. The skills, training, education, and competence of all personnel, including support staff and care providers in the facility, has a direct bearing on the quality and positive patient experience and outcome. Both clinical and non-clinical personnel play a significant role in creating patient and patients' families' expectations and perceptions of care. Human resources is the department charged with the need to communicate to all staff members an awareness of the organization's quality policy and objectives. This includes an awareness of your individual roles in meeting the organization's values and objectives for patient care, both individually and as part of a team. This presentation is part of that communication to provide you with an overview of the quality program. Some of the training and education is done by human resources at the beginning of your employment, and some is done in your individual departments. Human resource completes a general orientation of requirements prior to your reporting to your unit. Additional orientation is done from a unit-based approach. Records of personnel training, education, qualifications, and details of responsibility and authority specified in your job description is also communicated. Annual competency, ongoing staff education, information related to peer review, as well as competency requirements are developed, implemented, and reviewed. The standards relating to resource management address requirements relating to the organization's physical plant that control the internal environment. One important attribute is the maintenance of the plant equipment. A key component of this process is a preventative maintenance system that is developed and maintained. There is a difference between calibration of equipment and preventive maintenance. We have an outside biomedical company that supports our facility for patient care equipment, and the non-patient care equipment is supported by our facility manager. This is accomplished through a variety of methods and testing schedules. Significant areas that are addressed through the preventive maintenance process that are of a critical nature include the communication systems, the medical gas system, and the HVAC system. Specific issues are identified through monthly rounds that are completed with the EVS facility and infection control staff. In addition, the pharmacy's clean room and IV admixture area is tested and completed by an outside certified agency on a scheduled basis. The goals of the resource management clauses is to protect the life and safety of the patients, visitors, and staff. At Cypress Point Surgical, we deliver healthcare services. We basically admit, treat, and discharge patients. We focus on the detailed operational planning that identifies and defines how, when, and where the delivery of healthcare services will take place. Planning at the operational level includes departmental objectives for each type of service that we will provide. An example would be the scheduling of a surgical procedure, and you can see it involves many steps. 1, what procedure are we going to do? 2, when is the procedure scheduled? 3, what surgeon is performing the procedure? 4, how is the procedure going to be performed? 5, what equipment, supplies, and resources are needed to perform the procedure? 6, when will the patient be admitted? 7, how will the patient be identified? 8, what special concerns are there for this procedure? 9, what will need to be documented about the procedure? This is just a small sample of the planning for one procedure. It involves many more steps than these, including the timeout processes and the processes for blood administration, which are two areas where errors typically occur, so special attention should be taken around these and other high-risk processes. Additional processes that are addressed under this clause pertain to traceability of implants and medications and the control and measuring and monitoring of monitoring devices that impact the outcome of the patient. Examples of these are the EKG monitor, the pulse oximetry, our refrigerator temp monitoring, and the defibrillator checks. As part of the management of the hospital measurement, analysis, improvement, there's a focus at all levels. The monitoring and measurement that occurs with the patient management system, what were our case volumes, patient and physician satisfaction, are our patients and physicians satisfied with the service we provide? Are the staff satisfied with their job, rate of pay, and benefits? Are we meeting budget? Are we below budget or above budget? What are our patient outcomes? Have there been any non-conforming products, and how has this been addressed? What does our quality data mean? What is the status of any corrective or preventive action plans? All of these issues are part of the total quality management system. Measuring and monitoring patient satisfaction has gotten a lot of attention over the last few years since the federal government has tied it to some part of the reimbursement to hospitals. This is called value-based purchasing. Patient satisfaction allows the hospital to determine the extent to which it has met the patient's expectations. Patient satisfaction results are not a measure of patient dissatisfaction, which is an important distinction. Patient information is uploaded to Press Ganey on a weekly basis for them to send out surveys. We also have an internal surveys that are completed and reviewed by the CEO. The quality department is integral to complaint mitigation, but we each play a role in addressing the patient and our family's complaints. If a patient and or a family member mentions something that would indicate to you that they are unhappy with any part of their experience, notify the charge nurse, supervisor, or manager at once. The quicker something can be addressed, the more likely that they will have a positive outcome. Everyone has a role in patient satisfaction. Continual improvement. In addition to the internal audit process, we also have an established systematic process for determining potential problems and implementing actions to ensure the potential problems do not occur. This is our ongoing performance improvement process. The processes measured can be specific to departments or could be facility-wide. Monitoring of hand hygiene is an example of a facility-wide measure that we are monitoring. The areas in your department that need improvement can be identified from a variety of sources, including results of internal audits, staff input, committee reports, and evaluations. Areas for improvement are identified, objectives and thresholds are established, criteria are developed, and the process is monitored and reported to the staff at departmental meetings and through the quality committee structure. This program is evaluated on an annual basis, and plans for the following year are established. You need to speak to your department manager and find out what performance improvement projects are currently going on in your department. All of the topics I've discussed today comprise the total quality management system at Cypress Point Surgical Hospital. This diagram demonstrates how it functions as a system to provide continuous improvement over time. Standardizing the processes through the Plan, Do, Check, Act model will generate over time the measures and changes to continually improve the quality of care we provide to our patients. At Cypress Point Surgical Hospital, quality starts and ends with you. Thank you for your time today. If you have any questions from this presentation, please don't hesitate to contact the quality department. We do have some policies and procedures that are part of this presentation and have been attached to the presentation.